It just froze. I hate when that happens. Especially right at the beginning of the broadcast. How's everybody doing? So what we're going to talk about today, all right, we're going to be making parallels. It's been said that the farther you can look in the past, the farther you can look into the future. And people are like, why is everything today so crazy? It's not crazy. We've been here before. And so we're going to talk about the... We're going to talk about the collapse of authority. And if you're a consultant, right, and your job is to consult multinational corporations, such as pharmaceutical companies, so on and so forth, about what they should do or what's going on, if you don't understand that it's not about being right, okay? It's about what people believe and how fast belief systems are changing. That's what we're talking about here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to play you the rest of this Maha interview. Not the rest. I'm just going to take some key components and we're going to watch and listen. And this is expertly produced. This is part of a overall campaign to raise awareness to this whole Make America Healthy Again agenda. And I know every time you say Maha or MAGA, you know, you get this. And so if you're in a consultant, you cannot be on one side or the other. If your job is to advise, you have to be, you're not a voyeur. You're here to take a snapshot of reality and snapshot of the playing field and make an assessment about where it's going and the best way for your client to position themselves. So we're going to take a look at what's happening here. This is a weekly call. This is called the Maha Action Hub. And so they've done 16 of these. So let's see. No, we'll just, this is Rand Paul. So we'll just go from here.
He's been just an incredible part of the Maha movement. He's really fought in all kinds of ways to help make sure that we have.
Did you see that transition? Transition.
Paid for and
nice motion in the background. There's a border.
These are big food companies.
Around each thing.
He is also the author of the book Deception, the Great COVID.
Now the book is going to come in here too. Okay, come on, guys, come on. They're blowing the. You gotta get, and he's backlit too, which would be unacceptable on one of my broadcasts.
How about now? Am I unmuted now?
Perfect.
All right, great.
See? Did you see that
Tony
transition?
The
Excellent.
food stamps trying to get rid of unhealthy foods that Secretary Kennedy is doing. I applaud this, and I have a bill that would do the same thing. While the administration can do it, we want to make it permanent. We want to permanently get rid of unhealthy food. And so what people can do who are watching this this phone call or part of this Zoom or part of the Maha movement is help us find a Democrat, the lead co-sponsor on this bill. I have Republicans on this bill, but so far I haven't been able to convince a Democrat senator. If we get a Democrat senator on board, then there's a better chance of trying to get this done permanently. When you tell people that we are paying for soda, sugared soda as chips, dips, candy, for goodness sakes, ding dongs, donuts, Twinkies, all of these things. People are typically outraged and think we shouldn't be spending money on this. But so far, I haven't been able to get a Democrat. So if the movement can call, write letters, send emails, and use any personal influence you have with Democrat senators, we need to get a lead Democrat on this. On further front, you may know that I've introduced legislation to make government scientists reveal if they get royalties from big pharma. So if you're on a vaccine committee and two of the big vaccine manufacturers might be Pfizer and Moderna, as they were with the COVID vaccine, for goodness sakes, you should have to reveal if you get royalties from these companies. Now, several of these committees have been reconstituted by Secretary Kennedy, and I applaud that. But we need to make sure the law changes such that if someone else comes in, a new administration, that anybody who serves on these committees has to reveal any conflicts of interest. We put this through what's called a hotline, and that's to see if there are any objections, because we think we might be able to pass it unanimously. There were no Republican objections to this last week, and I haven't got word back yet on whether or not we had any Democrat objections. But we think we have most of the Democrats out of the way as well. So there's a chance if we get this passed unanimously in the Senate, we can go over to the House and it can be maybe passed under what's called suspension of the rules, where they have to get 2/3 vote, but it's done in an expedited timetable. So that's something we're working on as well. The last time I was on, I mentioned something that I think is an ongoing issue that we need to confront, and that is the idea of efficacy of particularly flu vaccines and COVID type of vaccines. Because these illnesses and viruses change and mutate every year, they keep changing the vaccine to try to catch up. They often don't do a good job, and the efficacy, I think, for COVID vaccine was questionable even in the beginning, but now there's a real question. They never really claimed after a while that it stopped transmission. They did at first. They said, oh, it's going to stop transmission. Then that turned out not to be true. But what we need to know is if the other statement they were making, that it reduces serious hospitalization and death, if that is a statement that can still be proven. And so I want the CDC to look into this. They have the best access to the most data. And what I'd like to find out is, does the COVID vaccine have any reduction in hospitalization and death? I suspect there's no help anymore because people have developed natural immunity and vaccine immunity over the last several years, and the virus has mutated to become less potent over the last several years. So there aren't that many people going to the hospital for COVID or dying. So I think it's going to be very hard to prove that the vaccine works. And why is this important? Because with the government still recommending that people take it from 6 months on up, it's a huge monetary gift to big pharmaceuticals. If it has no efficacy, why in the world we should be doing this? Not to mention the fact that there is without doubt proven problems for teenagers and young adults with this vaccine.
Okay, so this is super important. Just a few years ago, you couldn't, this would be heresy. This would be yanked off of YouTube. I've had videos that were YouTube went in there and said, sorry, you can't talk about vaccines, you can't talk about hydroxychloroquine or whatever. So here's Rand Paul talking to a host who's hosting a live broadcast that's being run by a government agency. Okay, do you understand the power of this? So questioning the vaccine, he just questioned the efficacy of the COVID vaccine. And so that's right. He actually questioned the efficacy of the COVID vaccine. You saw it right there. And why this is so important is there's something like 7 million adults and children that have autism. And so once you question one vaccine, you're opening the door to the whole thing. And so there's a discussion about autism. And so we're going to get into it, vaccines and autism. So we're going to get into it more.
Something I continue to work on. We're going to try to get to the bottom of. I applaud the selection of former Congressman Ralph Abraham to be the CDC deputy. I've known him for a while. He's a member of Congress. He's been one of the best surgeon generals in Louisiana. I think he'll do a good job. That's my main update, Tony, and everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks so much, Rand.
No, right, Ren. Oh, you see that nice switch? Okay, so that was a
And
that was a
he just texted me that his daughter has a medical crisis and that he's taking her to the ER.
okay, so we're gonna zip ahead here. So what's the next guest?
Welcome, Mary Holland.
Tony, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to you, Tony, and Maha Action, and everybody who's tuned in.
Ah, they're freezing up there.
This popular movement for health, and especially for healthy children.
Isn't that a nice transition? Let's applaud the nice transition.
Today is the change that Secretary Kennedy has achieved on the CDC website. For decades, it stood on the website, vaccines do not cause autism. This definitive, somewhat ridiculous statement that vaccines don't cause autism, even though they say we don't really know what does, but we know it's not vaccines. And that statement was based on incredibly limited research related to MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, and thimerosal. And those were probably fraudulent studies, or at least very, very questionable studies. So that statement has been hanging out there for decades. And finally, it's now been challenged. The statement is still up there with an asterisk because Secretary Kennedy promised to Senator Bill Cassidy that it would remain there. But underneath that, it explains that vaccines may well cause autism, that this is a high priority of CDC, and it must be investigated with rigorous, unbiased science. And as somebody—
Okay, what we just heard there was an absolute revolution in the vaccine narrative. Now, did you hear what she said? She said that the CD website now has an asterisk on it that says, hey, this statement is here not because it's true, because we promised that it would be here, and we're looking into it, into the whole autism vaccine thing. So this is what she's talking about right here. All right? So here is the CD website. And during COVID and, MSNBC, CNN, everybody was talking about, well, you have to do the sources. What is your source? And they try to demonize everybody they didn't believe, and then they sort of worshipped typical legacy authority altars of information, and one of those altars was the CDC website. So we're going to take a look at it again. We're going to get some music in here to just hear my voice without any support. All right, so here it is. Vaccine safety. This is about vaccine safety. And so here it says, the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim, because studies have not ruled out the possibility of infant vaccine cause autism. The possibility that infant vaccines cause autisms. Okay? So that right there is the equivalent, right? For me, it's the equivalent of Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses on the door of Westminster or whatever church he nailed it on. So he had 95 reasons why he thought the Catholic Church wasn't cutting it, and this was the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. All right, so let's once again see this website. So studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. HHS has launched a comprehensive assessment of causes of autism, including investigations on plausible biological mechanisms and potential causal links. So this is what she was talking about. There's vaccines do not cause autism. So there's the asterisk. And here is the asterisk statement. The header, vaccines do not cause autism, has not been removed due to an agreement with the chair of the U.S. Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee that it would remain on the CDC website. So that is just as groundbreaking as you could possibly imagine. And so we're not talking about Martin Luther, all right? We're not talking about JFK. We're not talking about Trump. Anytime I can work that in. We're talking about the collapse of authority. So, it's not the collapse of medicine that we're talking about. We're talking about the collapse of a centralized authority, a centralized narrative that represents billions, like 20% of the economy, right? Is MD directed medicine. So this is about a system, not a person. It isn't about one man. It's about what happens when a system can no longer control belief. If you are a consultant for Big Pharma, if you are, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, right? You are consulting multinational corporations in the biotech industry. How do you monitor this complete challenge to the official narrative, right? How do you know when the tipping point's going to arrive? So it's what happens when systems can we're talking about when systems can no longer control belief, and when ideas travel faster than gatekeepers can stop them. All right? So when you have the medical industry, the biotech firms, or what they're putting out their message, they've got their commercials on television, they're doing what they can, but what happens, right, if your ideas now travel faster than the gatekeepers can stop them? Because we saw them try to stop this idea that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine had efficacy, and actually there are court rulings that said the FDA had no business making a determination one way or the other. And so these are huge trends that are happening legally, politically, and socially, right? And so your job as a consultant is not to do this, right? Your job isn't to weep. Your job is to understand that when authority cracks, right, the belief doesn't vanish, it mutates. So we are in sort of a mutated version of what's happened already, right? When the information travels faster than the system was benefiting from the opposite narrative, when those powers can't manage the belief system, whether it's right or wrong, that's sort of irrelevant in this sort of landscape of the architecture of faith. We're not talking about truth. We're talking about belief. And so when authority cracks, the belief doesn't vanish, it mutates, right? So the architecture the architecture of belief stays. Only the altar changes. So the architecture of belief that we had in Catholicism, in the Protestant Christian world, that architecture is still here. It's just that other belief systems are taking the place on the pillars that we use to make meaning out of life. And so you have to understand that as a consultant. You have to understand that you have to navigate this architecture of faith if you're going to advise your clients properly. And you have to be behind the curve, right? You have to be ahead of the curve, not behind it. You can't be, you need to be wargaming before the revolution happens. So let's just listen to a little bit more of what Mary Holland is saying here. All right, and we can take the sound down. Here we go.
A huge deal, but it's a momentous deal. It's a monumental deal that the CDC is now starting to come clean on what it knows about autism. Because if we go back to the Vaxxed film, we know that there have been whistleblowers inside the CDC for 15 years who knew that they were lying about causation of autism. And so I believe this is sort of the camel's nose under the tent, and that this is going to have a cascading effect, and that we're now starting to see truth-telling about vaccines. And needless to say, pharma, medicine, academia, mainstream media are not happy. And that's why I'd really invite everybody on this call to send an email through our CHD's platform. Send an email to your congresspeople and to your senators, just saying we support Secretary Kennedy on this. This is a great change, and it reflects the truth. We don't really know what causes vaccines definitively, but we know that we have to be considering vaccines. That's what tens of thousands of parents have reported worldwide. So I'm grateful to Secretary Kennedy. I'm grateful to this popular movement. Together, we are making a difference. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. That was incredible. So, like we're saying, right? This is not about religion. It's about when authority cracks, when the official narrative is challenged by another set of beliefs that are traveling faster then you can manage the change, right? So how do you manage the change? How do you get in there? You have to have a boots on the ground, live experience. No, I call it more of an experience than a broadcast, is because you're getting intel, you're getting feedback to whatever it is you're broadcasting. There's a comment section, there's people giving you likes and responding after the video's done. So, once again, just because God is dead doesn't mean the architecture of faith disappears. And so we have to understand we're not dealing with a logic, we're not dealing with science, we're dealing with a belief system. And when you're dealing with the belief system, you're dealing at the core of how a person tries to make sense of the world. And that's why we're getting this, all the time. That's where the hysteria comes from, because it's more than just a set of data that you believe to be true. It's an actual set of values that you use to try to make sense of the world. All right, that is my broadcast. This one was a lot of fun. Okay, well, thanks so much for watching, and We'll catch you next time. Au revoir.